Behind the polished facade, truth is often stranger than fiction. Tonight, we unveil bizarre but true stories from Hollywood's yesteryears. These tales, verified by history, prove that sometimes reality outshines even the wildest screenplay. 1. Clark Gable's Secret Dentures and Halitosis Horror. Our first tale begins with Hollywood royalty, Clark Gable, the debonair king of Hollywood, with his easy grin and effortless charm. But behind that famous smile lurked a closely guarded secret. At just 32 years old, Gable's dazzling grin was entirely false. In 1933, a severe gum infection meant most of his teeth had to be removed and replaced. The dentures restored his on-screen smile, but brought a malodorous side effect: chronic halitosis. On the set of Gone with the Wind, co-star Vivien Leigh complained about Gable's foul breath during their romantic scenes. Imagine Scarlett O'Hara swooning in Rhett Butler's arms, only to be met with the odor of dental adhesive and garlic. Yet Gable's charisma endured. Colleagues noted he was obsessive about cleanliness, perhaps overcompensating for his dental embarrassment. To audiences, he remained the rugged heartthrob. The dentures were a Hollywood secret, hidden behind a perfectly lit close-up and a confident, "Frankly, my dear." 2. Judy Garland's studio-enforced diet nightmare. Next, we pull back the curtain on the dark reality of Hollywood's studio system through the story of teen star Judy Garland. Beloved as the wholesome Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, young Judy's life on set was anything but magical. At 16, Garland was under contract at MGM, and studio executives fixated on her weight. The studio head, Louis B. Mayer, crudely called her a fat little pig with pigtails, shattering her self-esteem. Mayer and his cronies put Judy on an extreme regimen to craft a slimmer Dorothy. The diet? Chicken soup, black coffee, and cigarettes, plus appetite-suppressing pills. This was a studio-enforced starvation plan, designed to keep the 4 feet 11-inch actress underweight at all costs. Day after day, Garland toiled under hot Technicolor lights, fueled only by a meager broth and caffeine, her hands often trembling from the amphetamine pep pills given to boost her energy. At night, when exhaustion set in, the studio prescribed sleeping pills to knock her out, then re-energized her with stimulants at dawn. It was a vicious cycle of drugs and deprivation, all to maintain a girlish figure. On the Oz set, crew members noticed Judy's eyes droop with fatigue as she clutched a mug of black coffee between takes. Studio minders watched her even off-set. The pressure was immense. Garland later recalled she was given pills for energy by age 10, calling her own mother the real Wicked Witch of the West for colluding in the abuse. 3. John Barrymore's corpse, Hollywood's ultimate prank. Our next story sounds like a morbid comedy. Picture this: the body of a legendary actor stolen from a morgue for one last party. It really happened to John Barrymore, one of the greatest actors of the 1920s and 30s. In 1942, Barrymore died suddenly of cirrhosis and kidney failure. But his hard-partying friends, known as the Bundy Drive Boys, weren't ready to say goodbye. According to Hollywood lore, a few of his drinking buddies decided to borrow his corpse for a final hurrah. The culprits: famed comedian W.C. Fields, swashbuckling actor Errol Flynn, and artist Sadakichi Hartman, among others. As the story goes, under cover of night, they sneaked into the funeral parlor, slipped some cash to the caretaker, and spirited Barrymore's embalmed body away. They propped great-profile Barrymore in a chair at Errol Flynn's mansion, a cigar possibly in hand, as if he were holding court at one of their poker nights. When Flynn stumbled home from a night out, He flipped on the lights. Flynn let out a blood-curdling scream, believing he was seeing a ghost. He fled into the yard in terror until the pranksters caught up and revealed the truth. It was all one last, twisted joke. 4. Thelma Todds' mysterious death on the Coast Highway. On a chilly December morning in 1935, Hollywood awoke to shocking news. Actress Thelma Todd had been found dead in her car, inside a garage perched above the Pacific Ocean. The press dubbed her the Ice Cream Blonde, known for her bubbly comedic roles, but her end was straight out of a film noir. Todd's body was discovered slumped over the wheel of her chocolate-brown Lincoln convertible, elegant evening gown and mink coat still on. She was just 29. Autopsy reports showed carbon monoxide poisoning from the car's engine. Officially, her death was ruled as an accident or possible self-destruction. But right away, things didn't add up. Friends insisted Thelma had everything to live for. And there were odd details: blood on her face from a possible blow, and her high-heeled shoe broken, as if a struggle had occurred. Rumors swirled of foul play. The suspects seemed torn from a detective novel. There was Roland West, her lover and business partner, who had reportedly been possessive and argued with her the night of her death. He allegedly locked the door at 2 a.m. that night, annoyed she stayed out late. Years later, West supposedly confessed on his deathbed that he accidentally caused Thelma's death during an argument. Then there was the specter of Lucky Luciano, the infamous mobster. Todd had rebuffed Luciano's demands to use her successful cafe as a gambling den. He didn't take kindly to no. One witness claimed Thelma had told Luciano, "Over my dead body," regarding his scheme, to which he chillingly replied, "That can be arranged." Was her death Luciano's revenge, staged to look like an accident? Some in Hollywood whispered that powerful mob-paid cops helped cover up a murder. 5th Silent Stars versus Talkies. Tragic career ends. When talking pictures. Talkies revolutionized cinema in the late 1920s. It was an exciting leap forward. But for some silent film stars, the innovation proved fatal to their careers, even their lives. Our next story is not one, but several, spotlighting the tragic fates of silent-era actors whose voices fell silent in more ways than one. Take Carl Dane, a Danish-born comedian beloved in silent comedies of the 1920s. Audiences roared at his antics alongside star John Gilbert. But when sound arrived, Dane's thick accent and deep guttural voice didn't fit Hollywood's idea of a leading man. Roles dried up. By 1930, MGM had relegated him to bit parts with hardly any lines, then dropped his contract. The former star found himself running a hot dog stand outside the studio gates he once headlined. Depressed and destitute, Carl Dane died by suicide in 1934, a self-inflicted gunshot at age 47. His sad end became a symbol of how cruel the transition to sound could be. Then there's John Gilbert, once dubbed the great lover of silence, second only to Valentino in romantic allure. Gilbert's lush voice actually recorded just fine, but studio politics torpedoed his talkie career. His films flopped, his personal life in turmoil. Gilbert drank heavily. In 1936, at only 38, he suffered a fatal heart attack. Many saw it as a broken heart. Hollywood had discarded its lover-boy idol, and he never recovered. 6. The MGM Munchkins and the Dwarf Village Debauchery. In 1939, MGM's The Wizard of Oz brought together a then unprecedented assembly of 124 little people to play the Merry Munchkins of Oz. It was a groundbreaking employment opportunity. Life for the Munchkin actors off-camera became the stuff of scandalous lore, with MGM purportedly housing them all together in what some called a Munchkin village at the Culver Hotel. What happened there ranges from delightful to disturbing, depending on who you ask. Judy Garland herself fueled the rumors in later interviews. She joked that the Munchkin performers were little drunks, who got smashed every night and had to be rounded up each morning with butterfly nets. Producer Mervyn LeRoy claimed these revelrous actors held wild sex orgies in the hotel, with local police on every floor to keep things in check. Indeed, with so many little people gathered, the Culver Hotel allegedly became a non-stop party of booze and pranks. One oft-told tale describes how the diminutive actors, after a few drinks, took to biting people's legs at the hotel bar in playfulness. Another recounts a Munchkin who got stuck in a toilet bowl during a night of carousing. 7. Technicolor torture on the yellow brick road. The Wizard of Oz may be remembered for its brilliant Technicolor visuals, but for the actors, pioneering color filmmaking felt more like torture than magic. Our next bizarre tale looks at the pain and peril behind Technicolor's beauty, where on-set suffering reached extremes in the name of movie magic. In 1939, Technicolor required blindingly bright lights to expose properly. The Oz sound stages were flooded with giant arc lamps. The heat was enormous and torturous, especially for actors swathed in heavy, elaborate costumes. Bert Lahr, playing the Cowardly Lion, wore a costume made from real lion pelts that reportedly weighed nearly 90 pounds. Under the sweltering lights, Lahr sweated so profusely that he could only endure a few minutes at a time before being wrung out. Studio crew had to dry the lion costume with an industrial blower each night. But the real Technicolor torment fell on the film's two fantastical characters, the Tin Man and the Wicked Witch. Buddy Ebsen was originally cast as the Tin Man and underwent a makeup test with an aluminum powder face paint to achieve that silvery shine. The result was disastrous. Inhaling fine aluminum dust day after day, Ebsen's lungs failed. He spent 2 weeks recovering from what was essentially metal poisoning, breathing with an oxygen tank. Unbelievably, the studio had kept pushing him until his body gave out. Ebsen later said he lay in a hospital bed, as MGM executives coldly informed him he'd be replaced. Indeed, actor Jack Haley took over as Tin Man, and MGM quietly switched to safer aluminum paste makeup. Even then, Haley suffered a severe eye infection from the metallic gunk and missed a few days of shooting. Then there was Margaret Hamilton, the dignified character actress behind the Wicked Witch of the West. In one scene, as the witch vanishes in a burst of flame and smoke, a timing error turned the special effect into a nightmare. The trap door beneath Hamilton stuck for a split second too long during a take. In an instant, she was engulfed in fire. Hamilton suffered second-degree burns on her face and excruciating third-degree burns on her hand. The copper-based green makeup on her skin had caught fire, intensifying the burns. Rushed off-set, she spent 6 weeks in the hospital recuperating. When she returned, Hamilton bravely finished her scenes, but adamantly refused to work with open flames ever again. To make matters worse, her stunt double, Betty Danko, was injured in a separate on-set explosion. A rigged smoking broomstick she rode blew up, landing Danko in the hospital with permanently scarred legs. The production seemed cursed by fire and fumes. 8. Hitchcock's obsessions. From fridges to body parts. Alfred Hitchcock was known for his psychological thrills on screen, but some of his off-screen quirks venture into the bizarre. Two peculiar obsessions of Hitchcock's have become Hollywood lore, one involving a refrigerator and another a rather grisly collection of body parts. First, the refrigerator. Hitchcock had a wicked sense of humor. often at others' expense. In one infamous prank, he gave a dinner party where every dish was dyed a disturbingly vivid blue, purely to unsettle his guests. But his fridge fixation went beyond pranks. On the set of Psycho, he coined the term refrigerator logic, joking that if a plot hole isn't noticed until the viewer has gone home and is looking in their fridge for a snack, then the film has done its job. Yet the strangest fridge-related tale was discovered in the Hitchcock family home in the 1970s. Alma Reville, Hitchcock's wife, kept a life-sized wax head of Alfred in their refrigerator. A chilling photograph exists of Alma proudly posing next to Hitch's eerily lifelike wax bust nestled among the groceries. Whether it was Hitchcock's idea of a gag or Alma's way to feel her husband's looming presence, one can only imagine the shock for anyone innocently reaching for milk, and instead coming face to face with Hitch's frozen grin. This bizarre memento suggests Hitchcock's morbid playfulness often extended into his domestic life. Then there are Hitchcock's alleged body part collections. While he didn't literally collect human remains, he certainly collected macabre ideas. Hitchcock's films reveal his figurative collection of body part imagery: severed hands, choking neckties, peeping eyes. However, one persistent Hollywood rumor claimed Hitchcock kept something creepy in his private possession. In reality, what he treasured were detailed crime scene photos and forensic pathology textbooks. He was fascinated by what makes audiences squirm. Co-workers often remarked on Hitch's ghoulish office decor, reportedly a drawer stuffed with fake ears, noses, and other cast-off prosthetics from film sets, which he'd pull out to startle visitors. Hitchcock also had an unsettling prank he'd pull on new actors, gifting them a doll or souvenir of their character's body part. In a sense, Hitchcock did collect body parts. 9. James Dean, Death and the Posthumous. Oscar nomination, James Dean's life was a meteor, bright, brief, and ending all too soon. The icon of 1950s rebellion only made 3 films, yet his legend looms large. One eerie footnote to Dean's story is how, even in death, he achieved a historic Hollywood first. James Dean became the first actor ever to earn an Academy Award nomination posthumously. The year was 1955. Dean, just 24, was catapulted to fame with East of Eden. He lived fast off-screen too. A passion for racing fast cars matched his on-screen intensity. On September 30th, 1955, Dean's silver Porsche Spyder met a tragic fate on a California highway. Dean collided with another car almost head-on. The mangled wreck left the young star dead at the scene, a shockwave through Hollywood. Yet James Dean's story didn't end there. In February 1956, as the Academy Awards nominations were announced, Dean's name echoed in a rare honor: Best Actor nominee for East of Eden. Never before had an actor received such recognition after death. It was as if Hollywood, guilt-ridden and grieving, sought to honor the talent it lost. Dean's performance as the troubled Cal Trask had moved audiences and critics alike. He didn't win that year, but incredibly, 1 year later he was nominated a second time for Giant, his final film which he never lived to see completed. 2 films, 2 posthumous Oscar nominations. It's a bittersweet record that stands to this day. Dean's legend only grew. Fans saw him as a beautiful fallen angel of cinema. At the 1957 Oscars ceremony, when his name was read among the nominees, a hush fell. People pondered what could have been. 10. MGM's Secret Experimental Farm. Fact or fiction? Hidden behind Hollywood's neon glow and studio gates are sometimes the strangest secrets. One unusual rumor from the Golden Age speaks of an MGM secret experimental farm. It sounds like a wild conspiracy. Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer growing crops and breeding animals for movie magic. Is there truth to it? During the 1930s and 40s, MGM was a powerhouse, not just in films, but in innovation. According to scattered reports, the studio maintained a quiet ranch facility on the outskirts of Los Angeles County. There, they could raise and train the myriad of animals needed for their epics, from the lions for the iconic logo, to horses for westerns, and even a colony of rodents for certain scenes. Some called it an experimental farm, because MGM's animal trainers and prop designers would test new techniques away from prying eyes. One verified example, MGM's mascot lion, Jackie, was housed at a studio-affiliated animal farm in the 1930s. Jackie was even used to test new camera rigs and sound recording equipment. Likewise, exotic birds and cranes were kept to populate jungle sets. The farm also grew specific plants and flowers year-round that set decorators could use on demand. Need autumn leaves in June? MGM's farm allegedly had you covered, experimenting with forcing trees to change colors out of season. One particularly odd endeavor, rumored but not confirmed, was MGM's attempt to breed a miniature cattle strain for use in background shots. While this sounds fanciful, MGM did engage in forced perspective tricks and was constantly searching for practical effects. There's anecdotal talk of a few pygmy cows and dwarf horses being raised, though official records are scant. 11. Alalfa Switzers' deadly dispute. Over a dog, from an MGM farm we turn to an MGM star, albeit a pint-sized one who met a bizarre, tragic end. Carl Alalfa Switzer was famous as the freckle-faced rascal with a cowlick in the Our Gang comedies. But Switzer's life after child stardom spiraled into misfortune. It all culminated in one of Hollywood's strangest fatal encounters. By his 20s, Switzer struggled to find acting work. On the night of January 21, 1959, the 31-year-old Alalfa found himself at the Los Angeles home of an acquaintance named Moses Bud Stilts. The issue at hand, $50 and a hunting dog. Earlier, Switzer had borrowed Stilts's prized hound for a hunting trip. The dog ran off, and Switzer offered a reward for its return. Someone found and returned the dog, and Switzer paid the finder $35 and bought him drinks. Stilts disagreed, claiming Switzer was responsible for losing the dog in the first place. That winter night, fueled by alcohol and frustration, Switzer went to confront Stilts and collect the $50 debt for the reward and expenses. Accounts vary, but an argument erupted into a physical altercation. Allegedly, Switzer banged on Stilts's door, demanding payment, and a scuffle ensued inside. Switzer, a short but stocky man, supposedly wrestled with Stilts, even whacking him over the head with a heavy object. Stilts retreated and grabbed a rifle. At this point, one witness later claimed Switzer, perhaps in a bluff, pulled out a penknife. In a flash, a shot rang out. 12. The Curse of the Misfits, a final film of final fates. In 1961, a film called The Misfits hit theaters, a drama about drifting cowboys and a lonely woman, set against Nevada's dusty vistas. It wasn't a box office smash, but it has since gained infamy as a cursed film. Why? Because tragically, it became the final film for its legendary stars, and nearly everyone involved was touched by misfortune. The Misfits was written by playwright Arthur Miller as a vehicle for his wife, Marilyn Monroe. It co-starred Clark Gable and Montgomery Clift, but filming was troubled. Monroe's marriage to Miller was disintegrating during the shoot. She struggled with substance abuse and emotional turmoil, delaying production with hospitalizations. Monty Clift, himself battling alcoholism and pain from a disfiguring car crash years prior, was fragile. Clark Gable, the aging king, was determined to perform his own strenuous stunts to prove he still had it. Within days of completing the grueling shoot, Clark Gable suffered a massive heart attack. Some blamed a particularly exhausting scene of Gable being dragged by a wild horse. Others, the stress of working with Monroe's erratic schedule. Gable, who had famously said, "Marilyn damn near gave me a heart attack," with her delays, indeed collapsed. He died on November 16, 1960, not even 2 weeks after filming Wrapped. The press mourned Rhett Butler himself, felled perhaps by the unforgiving location work of the Misfits. His widow gave birth to his son just months later, a bittersweet coda. Marilyn Monroe never completed another film. In August 1962, a year after the Misfits' release, Monroe died of an overdose under enduringly mysterious circumstances. She was only 36. In her final on-screen moments in The Misfits, Marilyn's character triumphs over sadness and finds a glimmer of hope. Off-screen, Marilyn couldn't outrun her demons. 13. Howard Hughes, eccentric mogul of Hollywood. No compilation of bizarre Hollywood tales would be complete without Howard Hughes, the maverick billionaire filmmaker and aviator whose eccentricities became the stuff of legend. Hughes wasn't just a Hollywood producer. In the 1940s, Hughes was a dashing tycoon, known for romancing starlets and breaking aviation records. He produced big-budget movies like Hell's Angels and The Outlaw. But even in those years, cracks showed in his conventional persona. For instance, during the filming of The Outlaw, Hughes became obsessed with actress Jane Russell's bust. The bra was engineered like a suspension bridge, all for the sake of what he considered the perfect on-screen figure. Russell later said she never actually wore Hughes's uncomfortable contraption. But the fact that a studio head would go to such lengths reveals Hughes's intense, peculiar focus on minutiae. As years went on, Hughes's quirks ballooned into full-blown, obsessive-compulsive disorder. In 1947, at the peak of his Hollywood power, Hughes locked himself in a dark screening room for 4 months straight. He sat naked in a leather chair, endlessly watching movies in a continuous loop. He subsisted on chocolate bars and milk, yet was so phobic of germs he issued memos demanding nobody look at him or speak to him. He relieved himself in empty bottles rather than use a contaminated restroom. By the time he emerged, disheveled and skeletal, he had filled rows of jars with his urine. Hughes also famously began wearing tissue boxes on his feet as makeshift germ-free slippers in later years. 14. The mysterious death of Superman, George Reeves. He was the Man of Steel on screen. George Reeves, television's Superman in the 1950s, leaping tall buildings in a single bound. But in real life, Reeves met an end as confounding as any comic book mystery. In June 1959, George Reeves died from a gunshot wound to the head in his Hollywood Hills home. The official ruling was suicide, but even decades later, whispers persist that Superman may have been the victim of foul play. Reeves was found nude on his bed with a Luger pistol at his side. Present in the house that fateful early morning were his fiancée, Leonore Lemon, and a few house guests who'd been partying downstairs. The guests told police that Leonore had been with George in the bedroom moments before the gunshot, and that she came downstairs afterwards, distraught, mumbling, "Tell them I was down here." Several puzzling details emerged. The gun that killed Reeves had no fingerprints on it, and initially it was reported that no gunpowder burns were found on Reeves. Moreover, 2 additional bullet holes were found in the floor. These factors weren't fully explained by the rushed investigation. Police quickly labeled it a self-inflicted wound. Indeed, Reeves had been reportedly depressed over being typecast like Superman, and struggling to find new work. But Hollywood insiders pointed to a more sinister theory involving Reeves's entanglement with Toni Mannix, the wife of powerful MGM executive Eddie Mannix. Toni and George had been in a long-term affair. She had even bought him the very house in which he died. George broke it off to be with Leonore, and Toni was said to be heartbroken. One theory suggests Eddie Mannix arranged a hit on Reeves in retaliation or to avenge Toni's honor, staging it as a suicide. It's pure speculation, but it gained traction because Eddie Mannix had been implicated in covering up many a Hollywood scandal. Notably, Toni Mannix allegedly confessed late in life. A friend claimed a senile Toni admitted she and Eddie were behind Reeves's death. But this anecdote remains unverified hearsay. 15. Peg and Whistle. The Hollywood sign, suicide. High above Hollywood, on the hills where dreams and despair collide, stands the famous Hollywood sign. In September 1932, that sign became the site of one of Hollywood's most poignant tragedies, the death of actress Peg Entwistle, who leapt from the towering letter H in an apparent suicide. Her story endures as a cautionary tale of crushed dreams in Tinseltown. Peg Entwistle was a 24-year-old Broadway actress who had come west seeking film stardom. She had talent and beauty, but after a couple of uncredited film roles, her prospects in Hollywood looked dim. During the Great Depression, studios were cutting contracts, and Peg felt the sting of rejection. In a fateful moment of hopelessness, Peg hiked up the steep path of Mount Lee to the Hollywoodland sign on the night of September 16, 1932. She climbed a workman's ladder to the top of the 50-foot letter H, and, as the city's lights twinkled below, she jumped. The next day, a woman hiking found a single shoe and a jacket below the sign, and then the body of a young woman in the brush. Police also found a purse containing a heartbreaking suicide note. "I am afraid I am a coward. I am sorry for everything. If I had done this a long time ago, it would have saved a lot of pain," the note read. For 2 days, the identity of the Hollywood sign girl was a mystery splashed across newspapers. Finally, Peg's distressed uncle saw the reports and confirmed the deceased was his niece. 16th. Rudolph Valentino and the Cursed Ring of Destiny. Rudolph Valentino, the original Hollywood heartthrob. His untimely death in 1926 at age 31 caused mass hysteria. Thousands of fans rioted at his New York funeral, and some reportedly even killed themselves in despair. But among the many legends of Valentino, one stands out for its bizarre occult flavor: the tale of Valentino's cursed ring. The story goes that sometime around 1920, Valentino strolled into a San Francisco jewelry shop and was captivated by a large antique signet ring with a tiger's eye stone. The jeweler supposedly warned him that the ring carried a jinx. Valentino, perhaps intrigued by the mystique, bought it anyway. He started wearing the ring during the filming of The Young Raja. That film flopped terribly. Friends whispered that the ring's curse had already begun. Fast forward to 1926. Valentino falls ill suddenly and dies of peritonitis. Fans are inconsolable, and the cursed ring's legend truly takes hold. Actress Pola Negri, Valentino's lover, chooses the tiger's eye ring from his belongings as a keepsake. Negri herself soon falls gravely ill. She recovered, but believed enough in the ring's curse that she eventually passed it on. Negri gifted the ring to a young singer and actor named Russ Columbo, who some called the next Valentino, due to his resemblance. Chillingly, not long after, Columbo died in a freak accident. Valentino's ring claimed its next life, according to lore. Columbo's best friend, entertainer Joe Casino, inherited the ring. Joe, perhaps wary, didn't wear it for years, But eventually he did. And within a week, he was killed by a truck while crossing the street in 1938. Now the ring went to Joe's brother, Del Casino. Not long after, a burglar broke into Del's house and stole the ring. As the thief fled, he was shot by police. The ring was retrieved and ended up in a bank vault for safekeeping. Sometime later, a producer making a movie about Valentino thought it would be a great publicity stunt to have the actor playing Valentino wear the actual Valentino ring. That actor, a young man named Jack Dunn, was given the ring for a screen test. Strangely, weeks later, Dunn contracted a rare blood disease and died at just 21. The curse seemingly struck again. 17th. Betta Davis versus Joan Crawford. Hollywood's greatest feud. Two of old Hollywood's most formidable leading ladies, Betta Davis and Joan Crawford, shared a rivalry so notorious that it became legend. Their mutual loathing was bizarre in its intensity and gave rise to incidents that sound like plot lines from a dark comedy. The seeds were planted in the early 1930s. Young Betta Davis fell hard for actor Franchot Tone while filming Dangerous, but Tone was smitten with Joan Crawford, then Hollywood's reigning glamour queen. Crawford wound up marrying Tone, allegedly rubbing it in by parading him on set. Bette, scorned, never forgave Joan. At the 1936 Oscars, Bette won Best Actress. Tone gallantly congratulated her with an embrace, while Joan famously stayed seated, turning her back. Crawford later sniped a sarcastic compliment about Davis's dowdy Oscar dress. "Dear Bette, what a lovely frock," she sneered. The temperature between them was sub-zero from then on. Fast forward to the 1940s. Crawford moves to Warner Brothers, Betta's studio turf. Joan tried to bury the hatchet, sending Bette flowers and gifts. When Bette turned down the title role in Mildred Pierce, Joan took it, then won an Oscar for it in 1946. Bette, with acidic wit, shrugged that, "Miss Crawford is a star. I am an actress," implying Joan was all glam, no talent. The public ate up their tit-for-tat jabs in the press. The feud reached its climax in 1962, when both co-starred in the psychological thriller Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. This casting was a Hollywood gambit, putting two arch-enemies together and hope sparks fly. The set became a battleground. Crawford, widowed by the Pepsi CEO, had a Pepsi-Cola machine installed on set, knowing Joan was Pepsi's ambassador. Bette pointedly demanded a Coca-Cola machine be placed in her own dressing room to spite Joan. In one scene, Jane has to assault the immobilized Blanche. Joan, fearing Bette's genuine wrath, insisted on a body double for wide shots. But for a close-up, Joan herself had to be on the floor. Sure enough, Bette kicked Joan in the head, hard. Joan cried out in pain. Later she claimed she needed stitches, while Bette nonchalantly said any injury was accidental and that she barely touched her. Crew members, however, believed it was quite deliberate. Bette's next line in the script? "I accidentally hurt you." Joan exacted revenge soon. In another scene, Bette had to drag Joan's character across the room. Knowing Bette suffered from back problems, Joan made herself heavier. She allegedly filled her pockets with rocks and even strapped weights under her clothes. Take after take, Joan went limp, like dead weight. Bette groaned as she pulled. Bette later complained she was in agony thanks to Joan's ploy. 18. The Hanging Munchkin Urban Legend. Our final tale is one of Hollywood's most persistent urban legends. For decades, viewers swore that in one scene, deep in the background of the enchanted forest, you can see a Munchkin actor hanging from a tree. Could a family classic hide such a morbid secret? The origin of this legend traces back to the film's Tin Man introduction scene. Dorothy, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man link arms and merrily march off singing "We're Off to See the Wizard" down the yellow brick road. As they disappear into the trees, something swings in the distance. Starting in the 1980s, when home video allowed viewers to pause and rewind, whispers spread that the shape was a little person hanging by the neck. The story went that a heartbroken Munchkin extra committed suicide on set, and the oblivious crew unwittingly left the footage in the final cut. Chilling as it sounds, this is firmly urban myth. The studio explained the hanging figure was actually a large exotic bird from the Los Angeles Zoo that had been brought on set to add realism to the forest. In the shot, the bird extends its wings near a pond, and its silhouette gave the illusion of a human figure swaying. Indeed, Snopes and other fact-checkers debunked the Hanging Munchkin story thoroughly. No Munchkin actor died during production. Additionally, when Oz was remastered for its 50th anniversary, the supposed hanging scene was cleaned up. This only fueled conspiracy talk, but the simplest explanation holds. It was always a bird, not a body.